Hello, welcome to Get Your Mind On. I'm Lori Stohs. When you think about your company and think about growth and think about sales and think about all the potential out there, many people go, how do we make that happen? Or can we continue to make that happen? And thinking about that all depends upon how you create those relationships or how you pick up the phone and make the call or how you make those connections. Yes, how do we make those connections? Some companies have a lot of success around that and others struggle. So let's talk today a little bit about that. We've been spending time talking about strengths and how strengths integrate and the best way to use them. So instead of focusing theme by theme and teaching people about each of the themes, I'm going to do it a little bit differently and talk about a situation or a scenario and think about how do people approach that differently based off of their strengths and who they are. So when we think about that, and when you think about the whole process of going through a sales call or picking up the phone, I'm going to focus on something in particular today, which is about approaching a cold call. And so I have a company, and the leader is a very driven individual who loves to sell and loves to think differently and thinks visionary and really has courage for what could be and has courage to really take information and move it to a new level and really get people's interest sparked. And so she wants everybody to be that way on her sales team. Well, as we all know, that's a specific and unique talent. So how do we really think about when you are that way as a leader, or when you have that talent, how do you approach it versus how do other people approach picking up the phone or making a call or introducing themselves to somebody new? So when we step back and think about, number one, we all have a product or we all have a service or we all have something we need to sell. So number one, we have to definitely be passionate in what we're selling. I think that's the first thing, is knowing what our product is and being passionate about that. I don't care what it is in terms of what you have. That's really, at the end of the day, most people will feel that on the other end if it's naturally something you're genuinely interested in or wanting to provide. And I think at the end of the day, that's where big success comes from, is knowing that. So if you're there already, that's the first thing. If you're not there, I'd probably tell you to step back for a bit and consider what is the purpose of you working with that company or with that product, or are you really passionate about it? But next, then let's think about how different people approach the same situation. So we have something great we're selling and a message we want to get out, product that we're providing. Then we say to okay, all of us approach this situation different. Well, this leader, like I said, she is driven. She sees it, she gets it, and she has no problem picking up the phone to a total stranger and just calling that person. Now, what she does first on the front end, though, is she finds out a little bit about that company, does some research, kind of figures out what is their point of pain, what are they going through, what is something that might be of interest to them. She does a little bit of research, but has no problem them jumping right into that phone call and getting that person's attention, getting them on the phone, and being able to do that. She thrives in that. She loves it. She gets so much energy from it. So that's one way to approach the cold call. Then we have another person in the organization. He's definitely a relationship builder. He's a connector. He loves people. But it's more of a getting to know people and building the relationship first on the front end. So he eases into the relationship and he really knows and understands who they know, how did they know them, gets to know their personal story, gets to create a personal relationship with that person. And then he brings in the piece about here's what we have to offer, and here's our sale, and here's how could we help you. So it becomes much more of a little bit slower on the front end from a relationship side and longer sales cycle, because he really wants to get to know that person first before he throws out the idea. Does that make sense? So he's approaching it much more. If we look at strengths, he's approaching it much more from that woo, that woo from the influencing, and then more of that relationship, has great positivity and loves to build relationships. So more from that relationship column, where the first leader approached it much more from the few different columns. One, the thinking column, thinking about what are the different strategies that I could get to, and second, and how do I influence by picking up the phone. So she has much more of that command, futuristic, maximizer type of talent. So two very different situations in approaching it. Now, some people, though, I have another type of person when you think about a cold call. If you're in sales and you really are a little bit more intellectual and a little bit more thought process oriented, I have some individuals who love, they're naturally learners. They build relationships through learning and input. So they love information. They love to get to know people. So when they approach the sale, sometimes they have to do a little bit more research on the front end, but they kind of build their confidence through competence. So meaning, I don't want to pick up the phone and call because what if they ask me a question that I don't know? Well, for some of you who are in sales, you go, gosh, will I ever know every answer to every question? No, we won't. So those individuals I find struggle a little bit if they're coming from that thinking perspective a little bit more, because they're the ones that are wanting that information and don't have as much of that influencing talent. That influencing talent can pretty much maneuver through things, but that input learner piece, sometimes people need more information. Of course, everything's depending on what else is with it is all what matters. But those are just some ways to think about it. And I find those individuals, it'll take us a little bit longer to get them up to speed before they feel comfortable and confident picking up the phone and calling for that cold call. So when we think about sales, I want you to think about those different ways of approaching it. So for positive charge, number one, when you're thinking about selling, again, everybody has to sell something. But first, do you believe in what you're selling? Second is, what is your approach to it? And third is, how can you benefit from utilizing others if you don't have that talent you're looking for or that you need in that role? So really, when we think about selling, when we think about picking up that phone to making that cold call, we all approach things differently. But I really want you to think about your outcome, who you are, and how to align to that success for you. Thanks for joining us today, and remember to get your mind on.